What's going on, Z Nation, and welcome to another edition of ZSPN. I'm your host, Zaid here. And today, guys, I'm going to be talking about the Denver Broncos and just the results of the 2019 NFL Draft. Like before anything, like always, please be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share my videos all over Facebook, Twitter, all the good social media stuff. Now, as a result of the Broncos selection of this year's draft, there's just basically a headline for this type of the results of this year's draft, and that's basically trades. For these past maybe 3 days now, since Friday, well, actually no, it's no, Thursday. My mistake. Thursday, the Broncos have been just making trades to get the type of assets and also the players that they are just basically wanted to get, and basically they're trying to fill up the needs that they were basically acquiring when it came to these certain selections. Obviously, we all know what happened on Thursday. The Broncos at one point had the 10th overall selection in this year's draft, and then decided to trade down to the Steelers for their 20th overall selection, and basically got not just that, they also got another second round selection and also a future third round 2020 selection as well. So that's personally, in my opinion, if I had to give a grade, I had to say it had to be an A plus, because obviously with that second round selection, the Broncos also on the second day went after players who are basically needs that they were looking for, and that was an offensive lineman and also a quarterback who could be a potential future franchise quarterback in the making, and that was Drew Lock. And basically he's Drew Lock was ranked second prospects of top quarterbacks in this year's draft. The first one is Haskins, then is Drew, and then it was Daniel Jones, which, by the way, I can't believe the Giants really drafted this guy and didn't go after Haskins. I mean, it's just ridiculously, I had to really question the management role, but I don't know. Maybe this guy will live up to something. If because he has a good relationship with the Mannings, he might get some pointers here and there. But I'm wishing him luck. But I just really think if the Giants were smart enough, they could have go after an already pro elite quarterback in Haskins, who basically had 50 touchdowns during his times in college. So it was just that type of moments where you just had to say to yourself, who's the best player available? You just go after. But unfortunately, other teams went for a different direction. But the Broncos really did their homework. They went after Drew Lock, which basically all Broncos country, they were kind of expecting that the Broncos were going to get a quarterback anyway. So it was just basically a done deal for the Broncos in the second round. They basically got a hometown guy, an offensive lineman, and then they got Drew Lock, so he can basically learn, maybe develop a year and learn some pointers from Joe Flacco, being a veteran and also a champion himself. So it's just going to be very interesting to watch what this offseason will show, and basically the careers of Drew Lock and basically not just Drew Lock, the rest of the young players that the Broncos selected. And they also drafted in the third round also I believe a defensive lineman. He is basically a type of guy who knows how to rush the ball very well. He has a good speed, and honestly, he's going to learn very well from players like Von Miller, and being and like maybe he could be a good replacement for possibly Wolf for the Broncos once he retires, but it still remains to be seen. But a good selection on their end. Now continue on today. The Broncos, like I said in the beginning of this video, they also went after some trades for this on this third day, with them going after another draft selection, trading their I believe it was a 5th round selection to the 49ers in exchange for a veteran linebacker, former Bronco in Dakota Watson, former Bronco during his times in 2016. He did show some playing time. He played all 16 games. I believe he only averaged maybe 1 sack, but I'm not sure he's going to stick around as a Denver Bronco, but he could potentially back up certain players like I don't know, Todd Davis possibly, or their potentially maybe helping out Von Miller as being a sort of depth in the defensive lineman or linebacker position. So that could potentially happen. But other than that, the Broncos made that sort of trade and also got I believe a 6th round selection as well. So they really did their homework and got not just a player but also another asset, which they also used on another lineman, a defensive lineman for the 5th round selection, and that was for Justin. And that was for Justin Hollins, the guy from Oregon. He does show a lot of similarities to certain players that used to be a Bronco by the name of Brandon Marshall. He was the type of guy, shows a lot of comparison to him, in my opinion. Like always rushing for the quarterback and top speed. He has a speed about him. And also he has the hands. I mean, the guy can really reach and really grab anybody that comes his way and just really takes them down. So the Broncos went that sort of direction. So good job for that sort of selection as well. Also, for their last selection, I believe the Denver Broncos also drafted a wide receiver. He's also went to Denver, Colorado. He went to, I believe, CU. He's also a former teammate of a current player on the Denver Broncos, and that is Philip Lindsay. So that sort of relationship there could potentially boost this wide receiver's chances to maybe get in ranks and hopefully maybe get in the maybe the 4th, maybe 3rd option for the Denver Broncos when it comes to the wide receiver position as well. But other than that, the Broncos, if I had to give a grade for their selection, I really have to say I had to give them maybe a B plus, A minus, something like that, because they really did their homework. They really went after some players who basically are good needs on their roster. They went after a tight end in the 20th selection, which they basically really needed, because half of the players who are on the Broncos roster is just half the time they're injured, and they haven't been really living up to their potential draft selection that they were that we Broncos country were really hoping that they would basically approach that sort of goal, but unfortunately it just wasn't the case, and especially for somebody like Jake Butt, who there was some rumors during his draft years, during his year of the draft, that he draw into comparison of Jason Witten, the tight end for the the Dallas Cowboys. So there's a lot of comparisons about him. But unfortunately, I don't know. Maybe there's still that there, and he's still young. I mean, it's only been maybe 2 years now. But if there's any indication that he somehow develops that, I'm rooting for him. But as of right now, the Broncos really did their homework and getting somebody in Noah Flant. Sorry, guys, I always mess up his last name. It's either Flint or Flant. It's just how it spells is Flant. So Noah Flant, obviously, he is an elite type of tight end who could potentially be a good tight end weapon for Joe Flacco, who is the new quarterback for the Denver Broncos, and obviously he's going to be a huge need for him, and especially a much good improvement for the tight end position. But other than that, guys, I gave you guys my thoughts and my opinions about this Broncos selections of this year's draft. Basically, all I have to say, that they went after the needs that they were looking for, and they got them, and especially in the second round with Drew Lock and that offensive lineman from Colorado. So they really went after those certain players, and it was just one of those moments where you have to say the needs were met, and they went after them. And obviously, when it came to trades, they got assets out of it, and especially on day one for that third round selection for 2020. So obviously, they went after some assets, but at the same time, they got their players that they were looking for, and especially in the first round and second round. So it's just that sort of situation where you just have to appreciate the scoutings and the front office, that they went after these certain players for the right reasons, and especially for Noah Flant, and also for Drew Lock, who the Broncos really need to look for a type of quarterback like him who could. He's already ready. I mean, the guy spent 4 years in Missouri, so I believe it was in Missouri or something like that. But he spent there for 4 years, so he has the experience of being a 4-year quarterback for a certain team. But on a different level, he might need to learn how to play the game and learn how to be a type of future franchise quarterback. So and especially from learning somebody like Joe Flacco, which, by the way, John always draw into comparison of a Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers sort of relationship. So we can hopefully see that. But last time I checked, I believe it was like a couple of years ago, when Peyton Manning was the head coach, not the head coach, the quarterback for the Denver Broncos, where people thought that when the Broncos selected in the second round during that time, I believe it was 2012, for Brock Osweiler, they were potentially going. That sort of comparison of a Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers was compared to Peyton Manning and Brock Osweiler, but unfortunately, it just wasn't the case. And obviously, we could just cross our fingers for Drew Lock to really develop well and learn under Joe Flacco, and hopefully the staffs for the coaches can really help Drew Lock to develop to the type of guy who can be a future franchise quarterback in the making. So that's my own thoughts and opinions, guys, about the results of this year's draft for the Denver Broncos. Please comment down below, give me your thoughts about the selection, and please give me a grade about the selection from the Denver Broncos. I mean, honestly, like I said, I gave them a B+, somewhere around an A-, because like I said, they went after the needs of the selections that they were basically going after. They got a tight end, they got a quarterback, they also went after an offensive lineman, a linebacker as well, and also a wide receiver, which I kind of have to say they really went after a guy at the wide receiver at the end of it. I believe it was the seventh round or maybe it was the sixth, somewhere around there. And really not just got a wide receiver, but he has a good relationship with a former CU player in Philip Lindsay. So obviously they did their homework and got somebody out of it. But at the end of the day, these selections were basically needs, and that all had to do with the trades that they made. And obviously the best highlight of this year's draft for the Broncos were not just trades, but also the second and the first round. So I just had to give them a good a thumbs up on their great decision making, and hopefully these guys live up to their potential. So guys, please comment down below, like, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Go Broncos. See you guys in the next one.